Hey everybody, welcome into the Shelby County High School Football Show. We're out here at Pelham High School to get you ready for a big week of high school football action, and it's going to come at you fast. We've got several games. As I'm sitting here doing this right now, I'm actually starting over. This is probably the third time I've done this, but we've got several games that are being moved to Thursday night due to the potential for a lot of rain and possibly some thunderstorms on Friday. So we're going to run down those games real quick and let you know, and one of them's right here, our game of the week between Pelham and Briarwood. That one just moved to Thursday night, so it's going to be taking place in about 24 hours now from when I'm shooting this. It'll be game day here at Pelham High School and also for the Briarwood Lions. In addition to that, Calera Homewood already had been moved before I started shooting this week's show. That one had been moved out at Waldrop Stadium from Friday to Thursday, so two big Class 6A Region 3 showdowns there that have been moved to Thursday night. We've also got a big Class 7A Region 3 rivalry matchup between Oak Mountain and Chelsea moved to Thursday night out at Herdmont Stadium. So it's going to be a very interesting next couple of days. I would imagine throughout today that there will be a few more updates as far as games being moved to Thursday night. So we'll keep you updated. I'm going to shoot the rest of the show and go through every game, break them down, try to have the show up by Wednesday afternoon to give everybody some time to prepare and be ready. But check on Twitter at Alec Etheridge SC for the latest updates to see which games have been moved. We'll also be sharing that throughout our website, ShelbyCountyReporter.com. But make sure you visit on Twitter and follow. I'll be giving those updates there because I'm sure there will be more throughout the day after I finish with this week's show. But I'm just glad to be back. Last week, missed being sick on Friday night, had to do my coverage from home, and I hate doing that. It's tough to sit in the bed and watch as teams are having fun and everybody else is out covering all the games. This week, it may be a night earlier. Don't know how many more games we're going to have moved from Friday to Thursday. I would imagine as we've kind of seen the trickle-down effect, we're going to have several more move throughout the rest of today, which is Wednesday. So I'll keep you updated on Twitter, but we're going to jump in. We're going to talk about all of the games that we have coming up this week. We're going to go a little bit more rapid fire so that I can get everything organized and ready to go for tomorrow night. And then obviously we'll name our SCR Stars of the week at the end of the show as well. But a big week ahead. Going to be a night early for a lot of teams, but second week of region play, and we've seen some big things happen early in region play already, especially Class 6A Region 3. So we're going to talk about all of our games. We're going to start right here with our game of the week at Pelham High School. So like I said, one of those games moved to Thursday night. It's our game of the week. Pelham hosting Briarwood in a big Class 6A Region 3 showdown, and we're going to run through this one real quick, and it simply boils down to this. Briarwood, fresh off two thrilling victories in the final minute, beat Spain Park 23-21 2 weeks ago on an untimed play. Fantastic final minute drive there. Last week, bounce back. They do it again. 36-29 against Chilton County, a game they trailed by 1 point after Chilton County went for two. Took the lead by one there with about a minute left, and then Briarwood came right back down. Christopher Vizina, the five-star quarterback, up to his old tricks again for the second week in a row. Led them right down the field. Briarwood scores the game-winning touchdown there with less than 10 seconds to play, and they win that one 36-29. So a big 2 weeks in a row for the Lions, and now they get the Pelham Panthers. Pelham sitting at 0-2 on the season, but don't be fooled. This is a team, they've lost both games to Jackson Olin and Oak Mountain by 4 points, and those are two solid football teams. Lost to Jackson Olin 14-10, lost to Oak Mountain 21-17, and had chances to win both of those games easily. They just shot themselves in the foot a couple of times throughout both of those football games, but you look at what they were able to do against Oak Mountain, had great chances to win that one, especially there in the second half. Really in the first half could have extended their lead. They could have gotten in the 30s in that game. Ultimately, they just couldn't get it done. But the defense has played extremely well, and the offense, I've been actually pleased, even though they've scored 17 or less in both games. I've seen a lot of growth. I didn't know what to expect, a quarterback battle coming into the season. Clayton Maines really showed a lot of growth against Oak Mountain. I expect that to continue this week, and I think you've got two teams, Pelham, built built around their defense this year. Briarwood, traditionally a physical defense. You've got two teams that are going to want to come in and play well defensively tomorrow night on Thursday, ready to roll in this game. And you've got two offenses. Briarwood, they've looked good in the second half. They've looked good in the final few minutes of games, but they've been inconsistent, and Pelham's still trying to grow on that side of the football. Look, I think that it's going to open up a little bit more this week for both of these teams, but I think the defense is going to be the storyline early, and I think you're going to see a fantastic football game. There's nothing about this game that suggests it'll be any different from the previous couple of games for both of these teams. Pelham been in two thrilling games that have gone down to the wire, and then you look, obviously, at what Briarwood's done. I think this one goes into the second half. I think both have a chance to win. Class 6A Region 3 going to be a thriller this season to see who gets those top four playoff spots, and this game could go a long way. Briarwood looking to remain undefeated at 2-0 in region play. Pelham, this is their first region game, fresh off a bye week, an extra week to shore some things up and get prepared for this one. That's going to help their offense kind of take a step forward. Defense is going to be refreshed and ready to go. They're going to want to make a statement in this region opener against what could be considered one of the best teams in the state. So a big opportunity for both to kind of make a statement in the first couple of weeks of region play. I expect a fantastic football game, both teams laying it out all the way down to the finish line. If it comes down to it, it may take another final minute drive for Briarwood to win this one, but this is a Pelham defense that's not going to give up that easily in the final minute. This is going to be a thriller. I think this is going to be a fantastic football game that you're not going to want to miss on Thursday night. Another big one at the time of shooting this show, still scheduled for Friday night, and that's going to be the Thompson Warriors hosting Spain Park, and Thompson bounced back exactly how they needed to last week. 34-14 victory against Vestavia Hills, and the offense finally started to show what they're capable of. Sluggish out of the gate this season. They lose to Buford. They lose to Lipscomb Academy, two top 50 nationally ranked teams, two of the best defenses in the country, and Thompson lost two-year starting quarterback, their first Mr. Football at receiver in Ryan Pepins in school history, their next best receiver, their top two running backs, a couple of offensive linemen. So it was to be expected that this offense may have some growing pains early in the season, especially when you're taking on the caliber of talent that they did in those first two games. But last week, Zach Sims started to take control of the offense. The offensive line looked better. Some receivers stepped up, and A.J. Green has been impressive at the running back position as well, as really one of those guys that's been physical and trying to set the tone. So they bounce back, they look more like themselves, and they've also got that dynamic defense that's one of the best in the country, and I think that's the difference this week. A county battle against Spain Park, Class 7A Region 3 showdown here in Shelby County. Spain Park has been drastically improved. First-year head coach Tim Vakakis made the statement in the offseason that the defense has to play better. That's what this team hung its hat on when they went to state championships, and that's what they are looking to improve this year. And so far, it's been light years ahead of where it was the last several years, especially last season. Obviously, start with a win in their opener against Calera in a tight battle that went down to the final minute. Week 2, they lose 23-21 to Briarwood. Last week, though, they bounce back. They show some promise there against Hoover on the defensive side again, and that's one of your toughest opponents of the year. Defense still played well. The big question mark, though, now is can the offense give a good partnership to that defense? The offense has struggled a little bit early in the season to find consistency. They're playing fundamentally well. They're playing with basically all out. They're giving it all out effort each week. It's just a matter of them being able to make those big-time plays on the offensive side of the ball to match what the defense is putting out there from a production standpoint. I do think that they have the talent to be able to keep this game close for a while. I think the defense is going to keep them in it, but can that offense, against arguably the best defense they'll see all season, make big enough plays to be able to pick up a win? And I think that's ultimately the difference. I do think that Spain Park is drastically improved, and we've seen a lot of positives, and I think they're going to still have a chance to compete for one of the 4 playoff spots as they continue to improve with a lot of that young talent. But right now, still so much to prove on the offensive side of the football, going up a defense that's just way too good at this point in the season. I think that's ultimately the difference in this Class 7A Region 3 battle. Nonetheless, it's a county battle fun rivalry. You've got a head coach that's looking to make a statement, and he knows his guys are going to be fired up. I think this is going to be tight for a while. I just ultimately think Thompson's defense makes the difference at the end of the night. We've got another Class 7A Region 3 in-county battle, and it's a fun one. This one going to take place on Thursday night now. The Oak Mountain Eagles playing host to the Chelsea Hornets at Herdmont Stadium, and this is a rivalry battle that goes back a while now. These two teams have met 10 times all time, and Oak Mountain leads that series 9-1 in all 10 matchups. So Oak Mountain has dominated this rivalry series. In the last 7 years, they've met consecutively. Chelsea's won one of those 7 matchups, the only one in the all-time series. But the last few years, it's been all Oak Mountain in this rivalry. Now, though, you look at where these two teams are at entering this matchup, and you look at what happened a week ago in particular. Chelsea, their best game of the season, their first Class 7A game of the season, and their first game in Class 7A Region 3. They jump out with 41 points after the offense struggled in the first 2 games to score anything. They come out all of a sudden, the flip of a switch, and they score 41 points against their first Region 3 opponent. They ultimately lose 42-41, went for a 2-point conversion on their last possession, and just couldn't quite get in the end zone. But the offense took such drastic steps last week. Oak Mountain, on the other hand, they took a step back. After their 2-0 start, they ultimately lose 48-14 to Hewitt-Trussville, a top 5 team, one of the best teams they'll see all season. But the defense in particular just started slow in that game, and that's a key focus. This is a team that's going to be built around defense, especially early in the season as sophomore quarterback Will Odell kind of gets his feet under him. And so to see the defense start sluggish when they know they have to be impressive from start to finish was a little bit disappointing, but they bounced back on that side of the ball in the second half, gave up just 7 points in the second half of that game. So these are two defenses that started the season strong, but then both gave up 40-plus points a week ago. This week, I think they're both going to put an emphasis on that side of the ball, knowing that they have a sophomore quarterback on the other side. Each defense has that confidence of knowing that they're going up against a very young quarterback, and to know that they've got talented running backs on both sides that they're going to try to capitalize on offensively as well. So you look at that, I think you're going to see a strong defensive battle. Short week of work as this game's been moved to Thursday now. That could make a difference as well. I think you've got two coaches early in their careers here at their schools. Todd Cassidy, year 1 at Chelsea. Tyler Crane, year 2 at Oak Mountain. This is a fun rivalry battle. They both want to win this one. They both know how important this one is as far as Class 7A Region 3 goes and their playoff implications as they move forward throughout the rest of the season. So you look at what these two teams bring to the table. I think both defenses bounce back, and I think the offense is going to make some big-time plays at some point in this game. I just don't think you're going to see it throughout all 4 quarters because of how talented both defenses are, which I think at the end of the night ultimately leads to an exciting battle between two of the best rivals in this county. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this one unfold now a night early, so a treat for us on Thursday night to see how Chelsea and Oak Mountain unfold in this Class 7A Region 3 battle. Another game that's been moved to Thursday night, the Calera Eagles hitting the road up to Waldrop Stadium, taking on the Homewood Patriots, who started region play with a bang last week. A huge effort against Helena. They jump out in that game 14-0, take a 14-0 halftime lead on the Huskies, who jumped into the top 10 last week. A strong contender for the region championship this year, winning 2 of the last 3 region championships, finishing inside the top 2 of the region standings 3 years in a row. And Homewood comes out after Helena had really flipped the momentum in their favor in the third quarter to take a 15-14 lead. A couple of mistakes from the Huskies leads to Homewood finishing strong with 9 unanswered there in the fourth quarter. Homewood starts region play with a 24-15 victory against Helena. So a statement win. Now they get back to their home field this week on Thursday night, taking on Calera with a chance to kind of start taking control in this region alongside Briarwood and a couple of others in Class 6A Region 3 with a chance to improve to 2-0. So they're going to be confident. They're going to be ready to go in this one, but they're going to get a very tough Calera defense that's going to be looking to bounce back. This is a team that has one of the best defenses in the state this year. They've just been on the field so much throughout the season. That said, they don't back down from that. This is a team that's going to be ready to roll on that side of the ball, looking to make a statement against Homewood and show that they're still a team, Calera is, that can compete for one of those top 2 playoff spots and definitely one of the top 4 playoff spots out of this region. You look at what they've done defensively, started slow last week in their loss to Benjamin Russell, ultimately lose that game 23-6, and those were 2 teams that were playing extremely well defensively going into that matchup, so you expect a lower scoring battle, but Benjamin Russell early able to capitalize and take a big lead in that game. And that was the difference. Calera bounced back. They played extremely well in the second half of that football game, but the slow start on the defensive side of the ball and the continued slow play for the offense made the difference ultimately at the end of the night. The defense can continue to play well, and it will keep them in football games, but the offense, that's where the difference is going to have to be made. They're going to have to start making plays on that side of the ball. They've scored 10 or less in all 3 games so far this season, 6 or less in 2. Six last week, 10 or less in the first 2. So this is a big week for them to try to show something on the offensive side of the ball. But we saw what Homewood did last week against a Helena offense that's one-dimensional, wants to run the football. They still gave up some rushing yards, but they were able to shut down everything else and limit what they were able to do on the offensive side of the ball. So Calera going to have to show some balance, some promise on the offensive side to have a chance this week in this region game. That ultimately will be what makes the difference. If they can find some offensive promise for the first time this season, they'll have a very strong chance to win this one. But look, this defense, they've played against some top talent. They're going to be ready to go. This is going to be a low-scoring game. The defense will keep them in it. The offense just needs to find a way to make the plays to be able to make the difference in a win, and that will ultimately be the deciding factor. All of a sudden, this is a very, very big football game between Helena and Chilton County. We expected Helena to be one of those contenders for the region championship, a top 2 spot out of this region, and last week they had their chances. Started slow, which we've seen them do over the years, and then bounce back. They bounce back in that third quarter. They take a 15-14 lead with 15 unanswered, but then the mistakes. And that's what happens when you're more one-dimensional on the offensive side of the ball. You can't afford any mistakes, and that's what they had in that fourth quarter, and it ultimately led to a 24-15 loss to Homewood, whereas Chilton County entered the season with a little bit of unknown, and we've quickly seen that they're a team that is improved and is going to cause a lot of problems. They're going to be a team that you traditionally think you're going to go in, be able to pick up a win. This year, they're a different football team, and if Helena's not careful, they're going to be sitting at 0-2 in region play after this game. That's how important this matchup is. You look at Chilton, they had a chance to beat Briarwood last week, arguably should have had a 14-0 lead, had a lead going into the final minute, ultimately lose that one 36-29 a week ago. So this is a situation, you look at that, Chilton County's competed against some good teams, and they're sitting in a good situation right now going into this region battle. But ultimately, you look at what Helena does well. Jordan Washington, one of the best running backs in the state, very physical presence. He's going to be ready to roll this week. I think Chilton County's defense showed some promise last week, but they jumped out to that fast start. That's got to be the key. Helena's got to be the one to jump out to a fast start this week. They can come from behind. We've seen it the last several years in a row, but this is not a team right now that you want to try to bounce back and try to come from behind against in Chilton County, because they are good enough this year to be able to protect that lead, whereas Helena's going to have to be perfect every step of the way if they fall behind in this matchup. So it's an important week for the Huskies. They've got to continue to show that physical presence on the defensive side from start to finish. They've also got to have the run game step up and make some big plays early in the game. They can do that. They've got a great chance to get back on top this week, bounce back with a region victory, but it's going to take a lot of early success, in my opinion, to be able to play the kind of football game that you want to. And, of course, we're going to talk about it each week. They've got to find that different dimension on the offensive side of the football. They've got to open up things a little bit eventually if they want a chance to get back in the hunt for a region championship, and they've got a great coaching staff. They've got a ton of talent that's young, that's still growing. I think they're going to continue to progress and get better each week, which is a dangerous thought because we've seen already that they can be one of the best teams in this region, one of the best teams in the state in the 6A classification, and they've got one of the best running backs. So the talent's there. It's just a matter of progressing and making those steps each week, and I think the coaching staff puts them in shape to do so this week. They should be able to bounce back, but they've got to have their focus there and be ready to go. Otherwise, Chilton County, we saw what they did last week, almost shot Briarwood. They will be ready to shot Kalina if the Huskies aren't ready to roll. Last week, it was a slow start that cost the Shelby County Wildcats. Fresh off their 2-0 start to the season, the defense had played lights out through the first 2 weeks, giving up 7 and 6 in those first 2 games. Beat Montevallo 21-6 going into last week's game against Holtville, but ultimately fell behind 28-0 in that game early, and that was just too much to overcome with the youth that they still have on the offensive side of the ball. This defense, we've talked about how successful they can be, played extremely well those first 2 weeks of the season. Last week, though, they came out and just didn't start good enough on that side of the ball. The offense couldn't get anything moving to help them out either, and so that slow start put them in that 28-0 hole, and then we saw in the second half what they're capable of. They came back, made that a 28-13 game there in the second half, but ultimately Holtville, it was too much of a hole, and Holtville was able to pull away and win that one 34-13. So we've seen what they're capable of the first 2 weeks. We saw what they can do when they're clicking in the second half last week as well, and that they're not going to give up on games. But now this week you have to jump right back with a fast start against a team that you should be able to handle. They're taking on Jemison, a region game, a rivalry game, homecoming week there at Shelby County. So it's a big opportunity for the Wildcats to bounce back and pick up a win. And you look at what Jemison has done so far this season, sitting at 0-2. They lost 44-33 to Thorsby and 50-0 to Chilton County. They did bounce back, however, sitting at 1-2 now with a 14-9 win against Marbury. That said, they have struggled on the offensive side of the ball. They've scored 14 or less the last 2 weeks, and that's where Shelby County has to capitalize. Their defense has to come out from the start in this game, ready to set the tone that our defense is going to shut you down, and we're going to let the offense get a couple of touchdowns early and protect that lead. The defense comes out and sets that tone in the first quarter and can get into the half without giving up more than 6 points, more than 7 points, then Shelby County is going to have a great chance. I think this is a lower scoring game because we have seen Jemison improve on the defensive side of the ball a little bit this year, particularly a week ago. I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring, but ultimately I think Shelby County can inch toward the 20s in this one. Jemison, however, I don't know that they have that offensive potential, especially going up against this Shelby County defense. It's going to be ready to bounce back. They know what they need to do to set a physical tone, and they know they need to do it early in this game, and they have the head coach in Zeb Ellison that's going to have them ready to do that. I think ultimately that makes the difference. I do think the Wildcats bounce back this week, pick up a region win, and improve to 3-1, but it all depends on that start. That's going to be the number one focus for the Wildcats. Well, Montevallo did exactly what it needed to as well last week, and they bounce back from that 21-6 loss to Shelby County to open the season. They went into week 2 looking to make some adjustments, fix up some things, and they did just that in a 33-18 victory against Hale County to start region play 1-0. That's a huge bounce back for them in a game that they should have won, but we didn't know what to expect after seeing some of those struggles in the first week of the season. So big time showing for them to come back with that victory, and now they should be able to take care of business for the second week in a row. They take on a Dallas County team sitting at 0-2 on the season, and Dallas County, they've yet to score more than 6 points. They lost 28-6 to Keith, 17-0 to Sipsey Valley. Montevallo, simply, they're the better football team in this game. The question, though, can they continue to progress and show improvements? They've got more difficult games ahead, and if they want to continue to compete for a region championship this season, get one of those top 2 playoff spots out of a very difficult region, this is an important week to continue to progress and move forward. They do that, they should be in good shape moving forward throughout the rest of the season, but we need to see a little bit more growth on the defensive side of the football. They've played decent on that side of the ball so far this season, and I expect that to be a continued trend, improving on that side of the ball and it continuing to be a highlight. But then on the other side, they lost so much talent on that offensive side. Obviously, Kyle Cottingham, Joseph Anderson, two of the big stars gone from last year's team. The offense has been a little bit shaky early in the season, but took a little bit of a step forward last week, and now it's about taking another step forward this week. We saw the run game progress a week ago. Pass game started to show some positive signs as well. Now it's about putting it all together and going out and taking care of business in a game that you should be able to pull away in. I expect that to be the case. Defense is going to play its best game of the season this week. Hands down, I think they will have a very strong performance in this matchup. So now it's about the offense being able to show what they're capable of and starting to put teams on notice that they can move the ball and put up some big numbers on that side of the football. We'll see how they handle that offensively this week, but ultimately I think Montevallo is going to combine this week to put together one of their best games of the season, get a lot of experience out of this one, and get some confidence moving forward the rest of the way. Well, it's been about perfect for the Vincent Yellow Jackets, the last team from Shelby County sitting undefeated in the AHSAA. That's the Vincent Yellow Jackets, their first 3-0 start since 2001, and it's been a long battle for head coach Lucas Weatherford, but he's been working at this for several years now, and the team is starting to gel, starting to click, and believe, and that's the number one thing, is that they have that belief now already early in the 2022 season. They've just dominated the last 2 weeks. Obviously, last week a 65-0 victory against Central Coosa. That marked their second shutout in a row as they beat Winterboro 56-0 a week earlier. Obviously started with a 41-26 win against Raglan. So the offense has played well all 3 weeks. Defense has had back-to-back shutouts, and now they take on a Fayetteville team that has a 50-18 loss to Verbena and a 47-12 loss to Ranburn early in the season, sitting at 0-2. Those are two decent teams, but Vincent has played so well at this point, and it's been, I mean, you look at what all they had back on both sides of the ball. You knew that they were going to be good, but what they've done to make a statement early in the season, particularly, we knew the offense had so much talent back. They were missing Jamari Lawson, their leading running back from a season ago as he graduated, but they've shown that they can run the football. They obviously have talent at the skill positions as well outside of that. And so the offense has played well, but for them to put together 2 shutouts in a row as a 2A team when most of these guys are playing on both sides of the ball, that's what impresses me. That shows that you have stamina, and it shows that you're ready to roll for the bigger games down the road, that you will be able to put together a complete game. Even if it does end up in a shootout at some point, this is a team that's going to have the energy to stay in games all 4 quarters this season, and that could be tested for the first time next week against BB Comer in what could be a huge showdown between those two teams. But that's the key. You can't get caught looking ahead to that game because Fayetteville's going to be probably your toughest opponent to this point in the season. So it's a big opportunity for the Jackets to make another statement this week, come out, take care of business, and continue to keep that confidence high going into another important matchup next week. But ultimately, right now, you look at the struggles that Fayetteville's had through their first couple of games. They're just not scoring enough points, going up against a defense that has back-to-back shutouts and an offense that scored 50-plus the last 2 weeks and 40-plus each game of the season. I think ultimately Vincent's got too much this week. They should improve to 4-0, which is just unbelievable to where this program has gotten. I expect that to be the case. As long as they keep their focus in them, they're going to be in good shape at the end of Friday night. They're going to have a big opportunity next week as well. So a great chance for Vincent this week, behind all that offensive talent, behind a defense that continues to showcase what they're capable of this season, should be in good shape the rest of this week. Well, that takes us to the AISA and ACSC. We've still got Cornerstone on a bye week for the second week in a row, but we've got 2 matchups taking place between Coosa Valley and Lakeside. Coosa Valley hitting the road to take on Lakeside, and Evangel hosting the Tennessee Heat in an 8-man out-of-state game this week as well. So you look at Coosa Valley and what they've done this year, and they've struggled on the offensive side of the ball. We talked about it a week ago. They're now sitting at 0-3, and they've scored 6 or less in all 3 with 2 shutouts in that span as well. They've lost 21-0, 16-6, and 40-0. Now they get a Lakeside team that not played great this year, but sitting at 1-2 and has at least shown some promise on the offensive side of the ball. Last 2 weeks, they've lost 33-18 and 43-12, but against good teams, and they've scored points, and they also have a 50-7 win on the resume this year as well. So Coosa Valley, I do think the defense keeps this game close. Ultimately, though, going to have to score some points to win this football game, which we have yet to see this season. We'll see if they are able to get something clicking on the offensive side of the ball. If not, it could be another long night, but that's got to be the key, is putting up some offensive production to be able to walk out with a win. As for the Lightning, sitting at 4-0 now, and they've just been dominant so far this season, possibly one of the best teams head coach Tim Smith has had at Evangel. Sitting at 4-0, they've scored 47-plus in every game to win, but now posted 3 shutouts as well, and that's the impressive thing at the 8-man level, to be able to post 3 shutouts in a row. This is a team that they've only given up 13 points through their first 4 games of the season, and that came in a 65-13 season opening win. Now they get a Tennessee Heat team that has struggled so far this season, sitting at 2-2. That said, those 2 losses both have come by 1 point. They lose 34-33 and 28-27. Also have wins of 40-14 and 40-0. So their defense is playing well, and I expect that to be key for the Tennessee Heat in this one. But Evangel won this game 63-7 last year. Defense even better this year. Offense looking a little bit better than it was a season ago. I think it may be a little closer than that score a year ago, just because of some different players on the Heat's team. But at the same time, this is one of the better Evangel teams, and I expect them to be able to take care of business and improve to 5-0 at the end of the night. Well, now we jump into our SCR Stars of the Week segment, and we've got some big names to talk about as we go through and talk about the best performances from this past week. And we're going to start with the Thompson Warriors and what they were able to do. The offense finally turning the page, week 3 of the season. Zach Sims, 17 of 22, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns passing. Also had 8 carries for 70 yards and an additional touchdown. So 4 total touchdowns, more than 300 all-purpose yards in that 34-14 win. And it helped that he had some guys step up on the offensive side, in particular a receiver and the offensive line. But you look at the receiver position, and Deuce Oliver, 5 receptions, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns there for the Warriors. That's what they need. They've got to have somebody step up as a down-the-field threat there in the receiving game, and he did just that there for the Warriors last week. Helps them get to the next level on the offensive side of the football. Defensively, also played extremely well. As a whole, Thompson forced 5 turnovers with 4 interceptions and 1 fumble recovery in that win. So the defense continues to be one of the best in the state. As this offense continues to get better, that's a dangerous, dangerous combination. But in particular, Caleb Harris had 2 interceptions and 5 tackles. Peter Wood, 7 tackles, 3.5 tackles for a loss, and 1 sack in that win for the Warriors. So another strong showing on the defensive side for the Warriors. Emerson Russell at Chelsea also deserves a shout-out as an SCR Star of the Week. He went off for 176 all-purpose yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 42-41 loss to Tuscaloosa County. An impressive showing. He's been a leader there in that offense. I expect that to continue. And you saw several other guys step up as well. Carter Dotson, MJ Conrad, Jadarian McKinney, all starting to show some promise there on the offensive side in the passing game, which will in turn take some pressure off of Russell, and it'll open things up there for the Hornets. Dotson had his best game of the season, 3 touchdowns, 200-plus passing yards. He's starting to take some big-time steps there as a sophomore quarterback. 6A classification, Christopher Vazina, a big, big night yet again. Another game-winning drive for the Lions, 13-28, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, 17 carries, 97 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Had one of those one of those rushing touchdowns was the game-winning touchdown as well, as he continues to showcase why he is a 5-star quarterback committed to Clemson. Robert Beeson and Brady Wall, both big games as well. Wall, 74 yards on 4 catches. Beeson, 60 yards and 2 touchdowns on 3 catches. Those two going to have to continue to step up week in and week out for Briarwood. If they do that, this is a team that becomes more and more dynamic as the season goes along. As for the Helena Huskies, a tough loss against Homewood last week to open region play, but Jordan Washington continued to be magical in the run game. 18 carries, 185 yards, and 2 touchdowns there in that tough loss against Homewood. He continues. He's gone for over 100 each week of the season and is already north of 500 yards on the season, so he's clearly shown he's one of the best backs in the state so far this season. At Montevallo, they bounce back. They get a win this past week, 33-18. The offense starting to show some positive signs there. Braxton King, 11 of 15, 220 yards, 3 touchdowns passing there for the offense. They continue to show progress in the passing game. Javon Rogers, a big reason why. He had 7 catches, 128 yards, and a touchdown there in that win for the Bulldogs. And Anthony Martin, 31 carries, 120 yards, and a touchdown running the football. So that offense, that's what they need to continue to show. They need to have an even better performance this week, but those 3 right there are going to be leaders of the offensive side. If the offensive line steps up, if Martin can continue to find some holes in the run game, this is an offense that continues to become more and more dynamic each week. And you look at what the defense did. Spencer Adams, Hunter Lutz, both of those guys, 14 combined tackles, a fumble recovery also for Adams, as those 2 stepped up on the defensive side of the football. As for the Vincent Yellow Jackets, 4 players to mention that played unbelievable this past week. Blake Ollams, 8 of 10 passing, 155 yards, and 3 touchdowns in their win there for the Jackets. Rakilis Robertson, 94 rushing yards, and a touchdown there for the Jackets. Trey Youngblood, a punt return, and several 2-point conversions that he was able to convert on there for the Yellow Jackets, in addition to that punt return for a touchdown. And Zach Carlisle, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing and 1 receiving for the Yellow Jackets. So that offense, extremely dynamic. We know that they've got some big-time playmakers on defense, particularly in Ray Albright and Zach Wright. Those 2 have been lights out this season as well. So just a lot of talent there for the Vincent Yellow Jackets. But that's our rundown of the SCR Stars of the week. We're going to have several big-time performances, I'm sure, again, this week as we hit the second week of region play. We'll talk about all of those names on next week's show. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Shelby County High School football show from here at Pelham High School. Like I said, we've got several games that have been moved to Thursday night now. Since we finished the show, I double-checked to make sure no more have been moved at this point in time, but continue to follow along for updates as there is a threat of a lot of rain and some storms on Friday and Friday night. So looks like we may have a few more that do make that jump, but right now we've only got a handful of games that have moved to Thursday night, so we'll see what else is to come. But it's going to be an exciting week of action, Thursday or Friday, regardless, does not matter. Going to be a very busy 2 nights of high school football across the Birmingham metro area, across Shelby County, and in region play. So we'll see how it all unfolds. I'll see you here on Thursday night from this game of the week between Pelham and Briarwood. We'll have updates from all of those games tomorrow night on Thursday, and then we'll figure out the coverage for Friday as we get more clarity throughout the rest of the week. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe here on YouTube, and continue to share. I appreciate all the love that y'all show each week of the season. It's so much fun to continue to be a part of all of this. So thank you so much. I will see you next week. Hope you all enjoy your week of high school football.